Just to introduce myself quickly, my name is Kate Hinchy. I'm a reporter with The Real Deal, and I'm so excited to be moderating this panel today because building for billionaires really seems to be South Florida's specialty these days. I mean, like, to see where the ultra luxury market has gone in the last few years is truly remarkable, and we're very, very lucky to have two complete subject matter experts with us today. We've got Liz Hogan, one of the top Compass agents in all of Florida. You might have heard Liz broke the record on Palm Island this year. She repped a $40 million spec mansion, and she just launched a $54 million Star Island listing. Suffice it to say, she knows how to get major sales over the finish line, and she's more than familiar with ultra luxury clientele. We also have Todd Glaser down here, who we all know as the mastermind behind the $150 million Tarpon Island sale earlier this year, making it one of the most expensive homes ever sold in Florida. He's flipped Al Capone's house in Miami Beach, Jeffrey Epstein's house in Palm Beach, and he sold David Guetta a house on Indian Creek. He knows how to build for the ultra-rich. To start us off, Todd, I remember sitting in the living room of Tarpon with you in February, and you had just dropped the price from $218 to $188. It was the second season it was on the market, and you couldn't believe it hadn't sold. 6 weeks later, you were in contract. Can you walk us through how you got it over the finish line?
Out of what?
How you got it over the finish line for Tarpon.
A buyer came and he bought the house. So my philosophy is there's an ass for every seat. So sometimes you have 2 or 3 people out looking for something like Tarpon, and sometimes it happens immediately because there's a pent-up...
Todd, can you hold the mic a little closer to your mouth?
So sometimes you have 2 or 3 people looking for something like Tarpon. Right away you put on the market, it sells immediately. Sometimes it takes time for the buyer to realize that he's looking for us, sell a company, sell stock, and there's a liquidity event. So it's all about timing. So with Tarpon, we were able to sell it. We had to drop the price a little bit and meet somebody in the middle, but at the end of the day, it sold.
Do you ever get nervous that someone's not going to show up?
No, there's an ass for every seat.
Todd was telling us backstage that's one of his favorite sayings. And Liz, you stole one of my questions, but it's fine. I'll forgive you. Okay, so my question to both of you to start us off is, what's the current state of the ultra luxury spec market? And Liz, if you want to start off for us.
I think the super high end is doing extremely well right now, and I think the low end is doing extremely well right now. The middle ground seems to be what's struggling, but I can tell you from listing Star, the first person I had to show up was like, this is okay, but if you can get me the house next door, then I'll buy it all. So one lot's not enough anymore, and I'm the only acre property for sale right now in all Miami Beach, and that wasn't big enough. So going back to Todd, it's like bigger is better, and that's really what they want. It's everything is overblown.
Mm-hmm. Bigger is better has been the trend for a while now. Are you seeing that also, Todd?
No, absolutely. So there's a generational change. Back in the 1920s, Miami Beach, where a lot of the high-rise buildings are, Seacoast Towers, those were all 2 to 12 acre estates. And in Palm Beach, the same thing. There were tremendous big properties. The people that own these, the Vanderbilts, the DuPonts, passed away. 6 or 7 of their relatives inherited it, and they broke them up into 8 and 10, 12 properties because they didn't want to pay the 14 to 15 people in staff. Mm-hmm. They had different lives. They wanted to be in different places. The family wanted to do different things with the money. Everybody had a different idea, so they didn't keep the property. We're starting to see people starting to bring stuff back. Ken Griffin, great example. He spent $550 million approximately on the land he bought. It's probably worth $2.5 billion. And he wants a big compound. You're seeing on Lagos Island a $100 million sale. 5 years ago, if you would have heard of $100 million sale of Lagos Island for land, it would have been insane. So the wealth is coming back. People want, big compounds. And COVID really had a big push for that because people now want everything within their house. And they want big properties and they want safety.
Mm-hmm. One of the things... Oh, go ahead, Liz.
No, I was going to say, like, if you look at Star Island right now, basically between Stuart Miller and Ken and Phil Frost, they literally own half the island, just the three of them. It's really crazy.
Yeah, no, I think it speaks volume to the compound trend that we're seeing. So something I hear from both of you is that, demand for these really, high finish, turnkey, brand new, top of the line properties, that demand is higher than it's ever been and the supply is smaller than it's ever been. Why?
Everybody is still moving here, and it starts from the top and it goes all the way to the bottom. I had an attorney who came because the company he represented, the owner moved here. So that law firm opened an office here. And when he did, he said he went back and he told this company, hey, I'm moving to Florida. And everyone's like, we want to move. I have another customer, same thing. He moved down here. So we're going to get a small office. Went back, told everybody we're opening a small office in Miami. Everybody came. And so it's just, there's so many wealthy people moving here right now. Mm-hmm. And there's just not enough space for everyone. Mm-hmm. And Todd, probably that's why he moved up to Palm Beach. There's not much you can do down here anymore.
No, exactly. Because for us, we're looking for these legacy homes. And in Miami, there's a lot of developers doing what I do now. So we decided to go to Palm Beach, where there are legacy size properties. And when I went, everybody thought that it was just a place for people to retire and die. It's a generational change. Tarpon hadn't been on the market probably for 35 years. Some of the other properties we bought were, I bought a house on South Ocean, 3 acres, probably in 2008. I was the second owner. So those properties don't come up in a lifetime. So what's happened is these things are starting to come up. You have a demand for bigger properties, and you have the wealth of people have exploded. I mean, the amount of money people have now, it's unimaginable from what it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that too on the property I sold in Gables Estates. It was 5 acres. I mean, it's how do you even put 5 acres together today? And so one of the taglines I keep using is this is a generational opportunity, just like Todd mentioned, because it really is. It's so hard to acquire that right now. And there's so many people who can afford it. And they're all here in Miami or Palm Beach or somewhere in South Florida.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point to make about the segment that you both work in, is that they're thinking about the market generationally. Todd, you do exactly the kinds of projects that are in such high demand right now. What do you have in the pipeline?
I mean, believe it or not, we've really relooked at our whole business approach. And we're concentrating on the $8 to $10 million home in Palm Beach, non-waterfront right now, because for financial reasons, we're making a better return. You don't have as much outlay. We haven't been able to find anything else that we really like. And we're doing more renovations now than anything because we're feeding that $10 to $15 million market in Palm Beach that's non-waterfront that's just on fire. And anything over 20 and 30 is really slowed down, and over 50 is strong, but it's a big commitment.
Yeah, it is a big commitment. I'm curious, we've also talked about land prices and the market for land here and across South Florida. Is there any kind of softening of land prices that you're seeing?
I don't think so, because the last one that just sold in Bell Harbor, which was actually the buyer was represented from Bento and Compass, and Ethan and Ruthie had the listing on it that sold for $1,000 a square foot. I mean, that's just astronomical. I think the land prices are all rising. I look in the Grove, and they were kind of hovering around 200 a foot, and the last two jumped to 300. I mean, it wasn't even like 220, 250. It went 2 to 300. It's just really astounding.
Yeah, yeah. And are Todd, are you seeing construction prices easing it at all, or are they being?
No, absolutely not. That's one of the reasons I'm not building any new construction, because the prices are, they don't make sense for what people are charging. Everybody seems to be, as a subcontract, trying to get as rich as they possibly can. They're not manning or building their companies properly to handle the amount of work they're getting for the amount of money they're paying. A house that I used to build in 9 months is now taking me 1.5 to 2 years. So right now prices seem to be steady but super strong, and that's why I'm doing more renovations, because it's more controlled, and you can go to smaller companies and get the renovation part of it done quickly. We're renovating stuff in Palm Beach 3 to 6 months, and we're having product being able to be on the market for seasons. So our timing is by June, July, get it ready by January, February, and just put it on the market when there's a huge demand.
That's really interesting. Next, I want to really drill into and define the ultra luxury market in South Florida. So what sets apart a spec mansion for a billionaire from a spec mansion from people who are kind of merely wealthy?
I think, again, bigger is better. So what I'm finding in the properties I'm selling is it's not just a walk-in closet, it's a walk-in room closet. I mean, it's literally, the closets are bigger than the primary bedrooms. It's not a wine cellar, it's a wine room where you can invite your friends over, and they have tables and couches and larger areas to do that. It's not a 3-car, 4-car garage, it's a 10+ car garage. Really everything is within the house. You have bowling alleys, you have golf simulators, you have incredible gyms, a lot towards wellness. So cold plunge rooms, not just a cold plunge you run out onto the outside and jump in. It's like a whole room built around that now. So they're really compounds where you can stay there and never have to leave.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Tarpon, Todd.
Yeah, I think we checked every box except the ocean.
Yeah, and the 2 pools. So Todd, when you were starting out on Tarpon, I mean, how do you get into the mind of kind of a nameless, faceless potential billionaire buyer and kind of see a home through their eyes and what they want?
Well, what's interesting is we do spec high-end homes. So the word spec is almost like herpes, unfortunately. But we don't build spec homes that look like a spec home, with drywall, come in and finish it yourself. We build custom homes. We build fabulous homes. Do we do a red closet? No, because you're taking a chance where you spend $300,000 on a master closet and they rip it out. So we keep it. My wife does all the interiors. She's an amazing woman in her design, and she understands timeless design. And in timeless design, you don't need to put the reds and the blues and the greens. You just need to make a beautiful palette for somebody to come in and buy it. So the guy who bought Tarpon bought it furnished, turnkey, and from what I understand, he hasn't changed a thing on the outside. I did the design on the landscaping, and unfortunately he's changing that, so he didn't like it too much. But it's okay. But he didn't touch really anything on the inside because we build a custom home, but we do it on spec. So I wish I could come up with a new name for spec that we do, but we're spec developers.
But I think what he mentioned about being furnished, I'm finding that too. It seems like time is a real luxury for these people. And, like last one I did on Palm, we furnished with Artefacto. And the guy came in and he bought everything that was in there from Artefacto, and then went to Artefacto and bought everything that we didn't put in the house. So it's really, they want a complete finished product. They don't want to do any work whatsoever.
And on the note of, there's what they want and there's what they don't want, what are the biggest concerns that buyers have when they're looking at something? Like, what would turn them away from one of these homes?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say views are highly important. They want the view, but they also want the privacy. So I had some famous people coming like, oh, the paparazzi can see me across the water. And I'm like, from the causeway, yes, maybe, but they could get in a boat and see you too from any property. So, there's gives and takes for every single person. But I would say privacy is a really big thing, gated communities. So if they don't have that, they're really not drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is security is important. But what's really amazing is I was going to sell a house to DJ Khaled on Allison Island probably about 6-7 years ago. And he liked the private island, but it didn't really have a lot of street appeal because I had built this beautiful coral, majestic home that until you got in, you really didn't see it. And it didn't have the wow factor. So he didn't buy it. We wound up selling it. But the next house I built was 1420 West 23rd Street. Kobe Karp was the architect. I built the biggest home on the frontage that I could possibly do. The house sold 3 months prior to us finishing it because the guy had an ego. He wanted everybody to drive past and see his big house. It was on a private island. So, I've learned in a sense it's better to sell him at the gate and then trying to sell him in the mystery of coming in and seeing these beautiful homes. So it was a big lesson that I learned from him, believe it or not.
Okay, and I know we've been talking about kind of a couple different price points. How would each of you define, the ultra luxury price point in South Florida? Where does that start?
I mean, to me, anything over $50 million. And for me to say that 5 years ago, I think everybody in this room would look at me like you're crazy. But it really is. And the reason the market hasn't gotten over the 150, 200 million is there's no inventory. There's definitely a pent-up group of buyers that would love to buy. In Palm Beach, we see a lot of guys buying $30 to $60 million homes, and they want to be in Palm Beach, but it's not their forever home. And they're constantly, every Saturday and Sunday, they have lunch, they go to the beach club, and then they go look at real estate. It's almost like sport. And they wait, because the house that just sold for $177 million was to a guy who lived in Palm Beach, has been looking for over 20 years. And when the house came available, the broker made one call, and it was sold within a week and never marketed.
When I started, I was always told the parts are worth more than the whole. So if you had a lot and you broke it up, it would be worth more broken up. And now it's the reverse. So the whole is worth more than the parts because you can't acquire enough together.
Mm-hmm.
I think starting in COVID, the price that I would say would have been about like 30 million. And now I would agree with Todd. It's 50 million and above.
Mm-hmm. And prices are continuing to go up. I mean, I think the absolute hockey stick growth of 2021, 2022 is no more, but prices are still going up. Where do you see them going in the next 5-10 years? Like, is 100 million going to be the new 50?
I think so, if people can find the properties that justify it. And I think if there were 10 properties out there right now, they would be gone within a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at what Ken Griffin has done, when he finishes the house he's building, he's going to be over $1 billion in the house. Not what it's worth. Actual money spent. So at that point, it's going to lift the entire market up because, that number is unfathomable up until last year. And it's happening all over the country, not just in South Florida. I mean, Jay-Z bought a house for $200 million in Malibu that it's a beach house. The Weeknd paid $70 million for a house. I mean, $70 million for a guy that sings? I mean, That's a lot of money, guys.
Okay, and then I think a question that's pressing for the brokers in the crowd, how do you sell something like this? What is the marketing playbook for the ultra luxury?
I think something we learned back in the waiting room is the first thing is photos. So it turns out we use the same photographer, which is Mike from Legendary. Everyone he shot for me, I have sold. But I do think that's the first way people look at the house. I drive him and his team insane because I will change the photos 400 times. They think that we're done, and I go back because I really believe, like, if they're perfect there, it sets the precedence for somebody to walk in and already like the house.
So in Palm Beach, and I've seen this, very wealthy man comes in, and the wife loves the house, the husband loves the house, it's expensive. And then I've heard the broker say, you're 78 years old, how much longer are you going to live? You should buy the house and enjoy it before you pass away. And it's an absolute astonishment that people take that to heart and literally buy the house.
So you're just reminding them that of their mortality, and that's the trick to selling $150 million homes.
Yeah. And then I always throw in, can you imagine The Weeknd paid $70 million for a house?
I'm going to try this tomorrow when I show Star for sure.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Remember that you're dying. Okay, so you guys have both done so well working in, the absolute upper echelon of the market. Why isn't everyone else in on this game?
I think for me, and you know this, my whole business has been referral based, and I got very lucky when I started. I got in with a billionaire family. And they were one of my first deals. So that really helped legitimize me, and it kind of went from one to the next to the next. So, I think we tend to be very greedy, and I would say to people, you should link up with an agent like Jill's, Judy, Dina, anybody who's done those deals. If you can bring someone to the table and get one under your belt, you usually can use that to get more. Even every time I go for the listing, like, well, what have you sold over 30 million? And at least now I have a portfolio to show that. And that's hugely important, because even people who know you and trust you, I mean, when you get to those levels, they want to know you have the experience with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not just hiring a friend. They want results.
Correct. The friendship goes out the door instantly. It's like, we love you, but we're sorry.
Yeah. And Todd, I mean, I'm curious to hear this from you as well. Just how you got into the business of ultra luxury. And we've talked before about how, it's the same effort to renovate or build a home at any price point, but there's a price point where you make more money. Why wouldn't everyone else be doing what you're doing?
I mean, I bought my first house for $180,000 in 1989, and I renovated my first house, sold it, and we slowly started going up. I would get a partner who had an appetite to do the work or finance, and I just either outgrew my partners, or a lot of the gentlemen that I had partnerships with, unfortunately, have passed away because they were older and they understood what I saw, and they were very wealthy. So over the years, I've gotten bigger and better partners. The market's grown, and we're building a great product, and I see the expansion of this market even going higher, and the buyers are becoming more wealthy. Many years ago, a lot of people that were public figures or owned public companies, they wouldn't go out and buy properties. I mean, Nelson Peltz, 10, 15 years ago, bought his property in 6 or 7 different LLCs because he was running Wendy's. It wasn't doing well or whatever it was. And they're embarrassed that they're spending their wealth. The gloves are off because The Weeknd bought a house.
So do you have any advice for developers who are looking to kind of get into that, 50 million plus market?
I mean, you need to be able to build something that several people are going to like. You don't want to build a Polynesian house because it's very directed to one buyer. So you want to be able to build something that's like, in Miami, it's modern. In Palm Beach, it's Mediterranean or West Indies. But you definitely have to keep this in mind. He who owns the gold wins. So if you do get to finish a house over $50 million, there's a pool of 5 to 10 people waiting on the sidelines, waiting for it to be put on the market, and it's going to sell. But do you want to take the risk and go to sleep every night knowing you have $90, $100 million into a single-family home? There's no income. There's no return. There's a lot of spending. It's not like buying for $100 million. You could probably buy a 30-story apartment building and have a great return of 6 or 7%. But we build such equity in these properties so quick. That's where we get out and we're able to do it.
I have a question. Do you think the styles are going to change?
They always change. I mean, when I started, everything was Mediterranean, and the first modern house I ever did was on 327 East Revo Alto. It was a Carlos Chopel modern home on a lot and a half. I added a glass section with Ralph Choef. We built modern. We sold it within like a week because nobody had built anything like that for 30 years. So in Palm Beach, the modern's not really allowed, because of the design. The Mediterranean was big. Now the West Indies is like the winter chicken dinner. And then in Miami Beach, it's modern. If you get away from modern and you're going to do a development to sell, you shouldn't go away from that program.
Todd, it also kind of strikes me that you must have like an inhuman risk tolerance for the size of projects you take on. I mean, how do you think about risk when you're looking at a project like?
Well, my wife and I have never built a house that we wouldn't move into.
And that's that. So to both of you, there's only so many people who can afford these homes. Like, is there ever a moment where you start sweating on finding a buyer?
Definitely. I do. When I listed 40 Palm last year, that was a huge number for that island. The last sale had been 32 and I was at 48. I was shocked. In the first 3 weeks, I probably had 15, 16 showings. And then I had nothing. I mean, nothing for months. And I was just like, oh my God, I ran through everybody and nobody wants this house. And then, I was sweating. I was up at night. I was making the calls. I couldn't get it. I was freaking out. And then it was like, and the market was moving. It was my house. Like, the market was moving. And then somebody just showed up out of the blue. And usually they do, but there are moments that it's just like, oh, I'm fired. Like, I'm out of here. Like, my career's over. It's done. And I'll never get another listing again if I don't get this sold. So I have a lot of sleepless nights for sure.
So
I don't think Todd does. So I really don't.
I don't have sleepless nights. So what happens is the 30 or 40 people that came to see the house over the 3 months that she showed it and went quiet, 65% of those people are selling something, a company or what have you. And until they get that liquidity event, they're out looking. Some don't. Some wait. I'm a waiter. When the deal closed, the ball's in the hole, I go out and look. If you go and look and the deal doesn't happen, it's not a good feeling. So there's a lot of people getting ready to tee stuff up. So until they make this, cash event, they're out looking. And once they do, they immediately come in. So it's like somebody saw it 2 months ago. You don't hear from for 6 months. If it's still available, the deal's like instant. They have already dreamt about it. They loved it. They can't wait to get the deal. The deal's not going good. They're not going to get their house. Now the deal's getting better. So by the time they get their money, they've already spent it on a house.
So Todd gets plenty of rest.
Yes, I sleep very well.
I want to ask you both this. We've talked separately about before. The trophy market is obviously booming in South Florida, but it's booming across the U.S. There's kind of a network of these ultra luxury hubs. I mean, do you look at doing projects in Aspen, the Hamptons, Malibu?
I mean, for me, I get a lot of calls to do stuff all over Florida. I get calls to do stuff outside the state. I'm very, very, I don't know the right word, but I'm a brain surgeon. If you have a heart problem, go somewhere else. If you want Key Biscayne, I don't know it. If you want Miami Beach, I know it. Palm Beach, I know it. But otherwise, I've never really tried to go into new territories, just trying to learn new building departments and how long it takes to get permits. Golden Beach is a disaster. I've built 6 houses for clients. We've never developed there because it could be 3 years to get a permit. So for us, time is money. So we go into the markets that we know. We stick to the markets what we know. We don't try to go out and do something that we don't know, because usually it winds up as a learning experience. And if you're getting me involved in something, you would anticipate that I'd be able to do what I need to do and not learn on your dime or on my dime as a developer.
I'm on the same lines with Todd. I just stick to Miami, South Florida. I know there are a lot of agents with COVID who were jumping from LA to New York to here. I never really understood how they could do that. I think they must be much smarter than I am. But just the capacity to learn those markets and to serve people correctly, I always thought would be really too difficult. And there was so much going on here. It's like, why distract myself and try to, do something different? I'm just going to stick to the game plan that's working for me now.
Yeah. And I know you have a little bit of experience in Aspen. I mean, there's some big sales going on there. Is it apples to oranges? Is the market kind of being driven the same way?
So I have done deals in other places, but that's usually because they're already my customers, and my customers and I usually are pretty tight. So I had a customer here who wanted to sell a home in Aspen. They didn't want to put it on the market. I went to the agents in Aspen. I brokered it that way. I've done stuff in the Bahamas and different locations, but that's just because of them. What's different for me versus Todd as a broker, though, I'm constantly going to other markets to try to find agents who have buyers who may be coming here. And that's really what's helped my career a lot, is being with Compass, because we're one company and I'm able to very easily get to agents in LA, New York. Compass does a phenomenal job of bringing us all together at different events throughout the year. And that's really what's helped elevate my game over the last few years since I joined the company.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I think we have a little bit more time. So I think we should open it up to the audience for questions. Yeah, if we can get a raise of hands. Got one right here.
All right, so my question is for Todd. Every business model has a bottleneck. What do you see as your bottleneck in terms of growing and building your business? It's not capital because you have highly capitalized partners. Is it locating legacy lots? Is that your bottleneck in growing and building your business?
I mean, to find the legacy properties are definitely hard because they don't come up too often. But I would say the biggest bottleneck I have is, and we're having it right now, is our subcontractors are taking 8 and 10 projects, but they're not expanding their company. They're not hiring bookkeepers. They're not hiring more people working. So that's the biggest bottleneck we're seeing right now.
Would you consider hiring those people to work for you directly and having them show you loyalty so you have consistency in your quality and your capacity to perform?
The problem is you're going to be having to build an electrical company, a plumbing company. And what's nice is when we bid, you have a set price. If you run a company and you have your own electrical company and plumbing company, and those are at a loss because of the reason it was it cost more. You have exposure of a loss, where if you hire a subcontractor, you have a set contract. If he loses money, it's his fault because he bid it wrong. So you're taking added risk by trying to make the project faster, and it doesn't work. It's too much.
Do you find that the contractors are either dishonest or incompetent?
No, I think they just don't want to build. Look, in 2005, 2006, I saw a tremendous amount of growth, 2004, and companies actually built bigger businesses. They went from 40 to 80 people, and then in 2007, they were down to 20, and they were exposed with 60 people they had to lay off. They took massive losses. So the same people we're dealing with are now saying, we'll get it done when it's done, and we're not expanding because when this thing does slow down, which it will, what do we do with the 65 employees we have?
Okay, I think we have another question right there.
Hi, Todd. My name is Aaron out of Lux Properties, West Palm Beach. How do you become a world-class developer? What is the investment like, both in...
I'll give you the secret sauce. Go out and buy an efficiency apartment. Seriously. Has a bathroom, has a kitchen, has electrical, plumbing, air conditioning. It has everything you have at Tarpon. You put together a crew. Some do good, some do bad. You figure out who's good, who's bad, and then you sell that. Then you go do a 1-bedroom. Then you do a 2-bedroom. And as you build your team, you can expand the amount of money you outlay to buy the next deal. And you just have to make sure you don't get over your skis, which means you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. But if you want to start, you got to start small. Base hits, sometimes you swing and it turns into a home run, and it's by accident. You watch the ball go and you're like, wow. So that's what happens. So every 5 to 12 deals we do are home runs. Every one otherwise is a base hit or a double. You never get hurt. I don't have a rear view mirror. We never look back at what we sold something for. I've sold properties for $4 million that have traded for 12. I've sold properties that have sold for $35 million that have sold for $80 million. You know, one of my partners who has learned to have a rear view mirror was always like, let's just wait and get more. I said, let's just do more and have the money in the bank. You sleep better.
And last question, how do you think the recent election, the Trump administration, is going to fuel, the South Florida real estate market and what you do in super luxury?
Yeah. I mean, the president that got elected is very pro-business. I think the economy is on a upward trajectory either way. And I think it just enhances the entire question of who's president, because from what I understood, we were going to wait till Friday or Saturday. We got to find out Tuesday night at 4 a.m. who was president. So everybody in here seems to be more at ease with what's going on because you have a direction. They might not be happy with who was elected, but at least we're settled on the item, and we're not waiting till Saturday having this meeting thinking, do I take Todd's advice and go buy something, or do I wait to see who's elected for president? So I think it's all moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with that for sure. Leading up into this election, the last few months and the uncertainty, the market has been very slow, and just people still out looking, but not pulling the trigger. And when you talk to them, when you talk to the agents who are bringing them, there definitely was a real nervousness about the future. So I think just the fact that this happened has been a huge game changer. And I really expect we're going to have a fantastic season going forward just because of it.
Yeah. So now that it's a done deal, are you getting booked up with showings?
Yeah, I mean, some of my listings we're not having many showings. They're getting a little bit more traction, but the activity I've had on Star is more than any other price point that I have. And I have stuff from like $1 million all the way up to 50. and I have more action on the 50. So when we talk about it, it's really what is driving this market right now.
Yeah, the ultra luxury is hot. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. We've got some up in the front.
Hi guys, my question is for both of you. And before you guys were established, did you find it parallel in the ultra luxury space to get pushback on commission, or is it like the average home buyer space where if you show your value, you don't get pushback?
I mean, for me, I love paying commission because that means I'm selling something. So as long as you bring me a deal and it's a pocket listing, you will guarantee to get the listing back shiny, new, and ready to sell. And we do this all the time. The broker brings the commission, the deal. Even if they're not the lead broker, it's a pocket listing. We will buy it and guarantee you the sale of the property if we put it back on the market. Every once in a while, I'll sell one without you guys, but most of the time, we use the brokers to sell everything.
I think definitely on the higher end, they'll try to push back a bit on commission. And I'm really forceful with my sellers to incentivize the other agent. I think that's really important, especially if you have a product that has some kind of flaw with it. I'm always telling them you have to get them to buy in so that they're pushing their buyer to buy your product as well. And you should be happy, like Todd's saying, to pay that commission. That means you're selling the property and you get to control the price at the end of the day. So, you only have to accept the offer you want to accept and just build in the commission to that. There was an agent who told me when all the NAR stuff was happening, she had someone push back very hard, said, I'm not going to pay any commission. She was like, don't worry about it because no one's going to come show your property. You're not going to have to pay anything. And it's really the truth. With the whole NAR stuff that's going on, I found that some of the sellers are trying to compress the commission, but they're all still offering it.
Okay, one more. Oh, you. Perfect.
Sweet. This is a question for Todd. This is Zaid. I wanted to ask you, as a real estate developer, how do you keep up with cash flow when you're focusing on so many $50, $100+ million deals? Do you focus on smaller projects as well?
Oh, like I said, we've dropped down to that $6 to $9 million purchase. But as long as you're selling, you can keep buying. But where we make our money 90% of the time is on the buy. If the market happens to keep going, we benefit. But if we buy the property right, you're already going to make money. I mean, a lot of times we get stuff under contract and we flip it because we've gotten it for such a low price for us that instead of going through the whole development of it, we'll sell it to somebody else, make money, and move on. Like I said, I don't have a rearview mirror.
That was the first advice I ever received when I started this business was it's not about the sale, it's about the buy. And I use that all the time with my buyers because if you can buy it right, you can't get hurt. But to sit and wait and hope and pray that the market's going to move up to a point where you can exit doesn't really make any sense. So I agree with Todd 100%.
Okay, one more.
Hi, this is for Todd. My name is Billy. My company is Automotion Parking Systems, and I was wondering if that's the type of product that you would put into your projects.
We like to put in as many good bells and whistles as possible, but we limit some of the stuff we do because we give warranties mostly on every house that we build. If they're renovated or new, we usually warranty them a year. And to add a bunch of other things is great, but if the lift breaks, we get a phone call. If the generator goes out, we get a phone call. So we like to, turn a property over with 90% of the bells and whistles. We don't do generators. We engineer them, we permit them, we give it to the client. He gets with the people, he deals with it, and same with the lifts. So anything that's like added on like that, we try to stay away from. It just limits our exposure for, warranty items.
Okay, great. That's our time. Thank you, Liz and Todd. This was a great discussion.
Thank you.